welcome to this latest episode of the Bench Warmers podcast. We're here for episode 4, as I've been correctly aware that it's no longer episode 3. This particular episode will be a special episode. We have another guest with us, but before we get on to that, we'll kind of go over the usual what's gone on since the last podcast and things that have gone on between ourselves. Someone's been running another marathon. Nick, tell us how you went on.
Yeah, did good. Personal best compared to Manchester. So I've been over to Germany, been to Frankfurt. Brilliant.
Missed a game,
and then missed another game because the Bench Warmers podcast was sponsoring my son in a boxing match over at Lock Lane Boxing.
And how did he get on?
Sports Centre. Yeah, he bet a lad. I'm not sure which sports club he was from, but he
won, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. Did good.
And proudly wore the Bench Warmers podcast as his sponsor.
Yep.
Lovely stuff. Anything else going on? I believe there's been some more running in the last few days.
We've just had a weekend at Alton Towers. Me, Nick, Emma, Lennon, and Tracy have been down there. Only 3 of us stupid enough to do the course. Nearly killed me. I can just about wipe my own backside again, which is a bonus. So apart from that.
That's a lovely image for us.
All the things you want to hear.
Lovely stuff. So as we mentioned, obviously special guest, we've got Craig Rouse, first team manager, down with us tonight. He'll be getting quizzed and probed on his non-league knowledge and his Pontefract's history from playing to managing. So welcome, Craig.
Cheers.
Good evening.
Indeed. So we might as well get straight down to it and get straight on to you as a former Collieries player. We'll start at the beginning. Tell us about when you first joined the Colls and what things were like back then.
Yeah, I can't actually remember what year it were. I would imagine around 2009 probably. Came down as a player, playing under Simon Alton. And we did all right. I think the club had had its worst finish in its history the previous year, and finished with 4 points. And we came along, and up to Christmas period, I thought we were in a title race, and then probably the typical thing of a club with no budget is you start getting 1 or 2 players picked away, and you start getting players who are losing interest or having to work over the Christmas period and one thing or another. And form sort of fell away, and unfortunately, we finished I think around about 7th or 8th, but we reached Wilkinson sort of final over 2 legs against Staveley. Unfortunately, lost 3-2 and managed to go to a cup final for a side with really little or no resources. I thought we did quite well, and obviously that's where I think the rebirth of the Colls starting to be a little bit more competitive in them leagues sort of stem from.
Gareth, you'll probably have a little bit more knowledge than the rest of us when it
Not
comes
on this season, because I wasn't coming down at this season. I was still playing myself at this point. So that was the season before Brendan took over, I imagine.
No, I think it was 2 seasons before. I think they had another, because I left that season for work reasons. And the following season, I think they finished 4th or 5th the following year. And then the year after is when Simon departed.
And then Brendan took over.
Yeah, so as I say, we managed to go to a cup final, which were good. And obviously, I think we lost 3-2 over 2 legs. And Lee Gregory was obviously moved on and had a good
He's not had a bad career.
Football league career, scored in both legs for Staveley, as did I. So, yeah, little stuff here.
There you go. So, obviously, you mentioned there scoring. You were a striker predominantly in the non-league system. You played
in the early days.
Yeah, well, that was the main reason for predominantly. Obviously, you've played for a few clubs in your time in non-league. You've played for the likes of Bridtown, to name one that I can think of off the top of my head.
Pontefract, majority of Pontefract.
How do you end up, this is anything planned, how do you end up, I've always wondered, how do you end up going to Bred? How does that happen?
So I joined the army when I left school, which obviously people don't know this about me. So I went in the army for just short of 5 years. And then when I came out, I just sort of played local from there. And obviously, I think one of the Bridtown players were playing in the local Sunday side around Ireland. We played in a cup final. I played in that, and the manager were there, and it sort of stemmed from there. We got asked to go in pre-season, and obviously went in pre-season. Must have made enough of an impression, and got asked to stay around. And obviously made the long trip to Brid 2 or 3 times a week, and obviously a really enjoyable year. First proper season in non-league as such, and learning the ropes a little bit, probably a little bit naive and wet behind the ears, but stood me in good stead moving forward. And obviously, the following years when I obviously came to Pontefract and had a good season personally, and obviously a good season as a team. So yeah, obviously that's where it all started.
You pray for away games near home when it's like that, and you're playing for somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you do sometimes, but I can remember once when we'd been beat heavily and we were meant to travel to Bryn to come back past the junction where we lived to an away game, and then went back past his houses again, all the way back to Bryn and then back home. So yeah, you do pray for away games at times when you're doing them journeys, but yeah.
As long as you don't get beat heavily.
Yeah, we're an unforgiving league, like so obviously some clubs who have gone on and had real success, like Chorley and FC United were in that league at that time, and Radcliffe. So yeah, we're a real good league with a lot of strong sides from North West.
In terms of non-league football, you'd argue that when you were playing and how non-league football is now, it's a little bit more attractive, it's a little bit more glamorous. I mean, not massively, but in terms of the public perception, a lot more people are coming to watch games nowadays. What would you say the main difference is between then and now?
Well, the obvious ones are finance, isn't it? If you're looking at things, and obviously there's a lot more clubs that tend to look after the players. But I can remember, first coming down here, and obviously the facilities down here, they'll get criticised from the outside. But when you're a person that's come down here weekly or monthly for a number of years, you can see the marked improvement on what the club's done. So the facilities for everyone, the types of kit that the players are wearing. You've got our players now. They've got games analysed and clipped up for them. They're wearing GPS vests. Everything that were a world apart. You were lucky if you didn't have 4 or 5 players who'd been out on a Friday night back in them days. But I think the better players obviously want that sort of thing. So it's a good thing that's happened for the game. The exposure, the crowds. I think that's maybe a spin-off COVID where people weren't getting to. You weren't getting to any football matches really in the country, and by the time people were going back, maybe they were probably started by pro clubs, and obviously
you've got the Super League as well that people were talking about with the big clubs
so
joining.
The rebirth of non-leagues come along, and thankfully clubs like ours have obviously benefited from that, and hopefully it continues to grow.
So obviously you had that first spell, you then came back as a player to play for us the second time. Like you mentioned, there were probably a couple of positions that you played on the pitch in that spell. Tell us a little bit more about that spell.
Yeah, so obviously we came back under Nick and Doug when they were managers. I think it joined around about October time. And obviously we're really, a good experienced group and people in there who are familiar with from around the non-league, around the non-league scene. So obviously, coming into an experienced group, which again, when you're looking at the differences of what teams do, we're a group that just didn't train. We didn't have one training session all season. Miraculously got promoted, but deservedly so. But we were a real experienced group who knew how to grind 1-0s out and knew how to do things right. Fortunately, we had some people at the top end of the pitch and likes of Rouse and Mox who could put the ball in there.
You chipped in with a few though along the way, didn't you?
Yeah, certainly a super sub. Kept coming off the bench and obviously trying to chip in as best I could. But I think the winners that season, Whitey and Castle, were in a shootout with each other. I think they got 18 each. Radders obviously had a good season, Mox had a good season, I had a good season. So when you have that many players who
you'd expect to be up there.
Yeah, you've got to be up there as long as you can close the door at the back end. But fortunately, obviously that ended in promotion for the club.
There were goals all over in that team, like you say, the one that everybody were chipping in, even full-backs were all bombing forward, everybody were at it, and it were a good side to watch. Obviously, your day at Drumfield as well, which I know you don't want to talk about it, but please do.
Yeah, it was a weird one. Obviously, another game due to the form of people like Rouse and Mox at that point. Where obviously, I was sub that day, and I think he came on in 81st minute and scored the first goal in 84th or something like that, and then by 87th I got hat-trick. So it was a weird one, but the game, I think he's fortunate enough to come on probably when the game was dead and buried already, and the scoreline were away from Drumfield. So just obviously putting the finishing touches on a good result that day.
It was a weird one as well from a watching point of view, that we were talking about this when we went to the game after, saying, well, he's got to start the game after he's scored an hat-trick in 6-7 minutes. On bench again.
Yeah, and that after obviously I think the week before that I'd scored 2 at Winterton, then 3 at Drumfield, front bench. But when you've got players in front of you who are playing well, that's just how it is. And sometimes you've got to bide your time and wait.
But I'm sure you more than anybody, especially now, would appreciate the fact if you've got somebody who's willing to do that side of you and sees the bigger picture, to a manager, that's priceless.
It is, and it's not common. There's not a lot of players with a lot of patience, but a strong bench is always key to success. So you've got to try and keep players happy on that side of things as well.
During your time in non-league, obviously it's quite common with this level of football. There's a lot of characters in the game. Specifically in that second spell, your likes of Nige Danby, to name just one. In terms of the characters, is there any particular players, whether it's Danby or any others, that you'd kind of mention, and any key characteristics that them lads had, both on and off the field?
Yeah, I mean, you had a lot of good characters in that team. Obviously, when you're looking through like Josh Corbett, obviously Paz at that time, and Nige Danby, Luke Danville, Radders, Mox. I can remember obviously one story of Nick coming in to start writing tactics on board and would cut all nibs off his pen. He went for about 5 pens before he realised he weren't getting anywhere. And obviously we're a school teacher, so he sort of walked out of that changing room that day with no team talk, and we just went on pitch and did what we did every week. So,
and did you win that day?
We probably did, yeah. I can't recall, but just one of many stories where that changing room were experienced enough to just sort of run itself, and obviously the managers just had to keep us in line and keep us together.
We then kind of step onto the next phase of your footballing career. Obviously that season where you got promoted as a squad, it didn't quite work out once we'd got promoted. You, halfway through the season, towards the back end of the season, yourself and Paz took the reins to kind of try and guide us away from relegation. Unfortunately, on the final day, it didn't quite happen. What was that like, and how did that come about?
So I'd retired. So after the promotion season, I'd retired, and obviously, I think Nick and Dunk added to the staff and brought Ross Eagle in at that time, and obviously he brought 1 or 2 players with him, and obviously we were a little bit of a different group. And then, as time sort of transpires, I think Dunk stepped away, Russell stepped away, and the group started to be a little bit more familiar to what we were. And unfortunately, we were probably down at the end of the table, and obviously I got asked to. Would I come in and help a few games? And obviously a few games turned into the rest of the season, as it usually does, and obviously I didn't want to obviously see the club struggling, and obviously it's something that I wouldn't want to see now. So I came back and tried to chip in. Unfortunately, Nick didn't last too much longer after that, and there obviously a change in management from there, and from that period, it's probably one of the from having realised of the promotion to the lows of the relegation that season, and obviously taking our first steps into management is sort of where we went. We tried to obviously steer the club, and probably put up a bit of a fight too late, if I'm honest with you. I can remember winning a few games at the back end of the season, and obviously having the shootout here where I think we had to win to stay up.
Had to beat Answorth, didn't we?
Yeah, and we went 1-0 up, and
came round.
I can remember it as a story. I can remember it plain as day. We had a Stonewall penalty turned down on Mox, which would have put us 2-0 up, I'm sure, and obviously it might have been a different game. As happens with teams who are struggling, they score 1, they score 2, and before you know it, they've got 6.
We did get another as well, though, didn't we?
Yeah,
Went down with the fight.
Deservedly so, over the season shot. Deservedly so.
So then, obviously, that then, when teams go down, you end up back in the NCL Division 1. There's probably a few rumours about the other sides that you don't know what they'll be like when they come back down. It's a fresh start, a lot of players left. What was that process like of rebuilding a squad for the Division 1 and obviously the season that followed?
Exciting for us, obviously Paz, myself and Jesse at that moment in time, I think we've gone through a period of almost trying to change the standards of that season and trying to get a group who've never trained, who just turning up and playing, trying to get them into a routine of training, and they all seem trying to teach old dogs new tricks. It just didn't happen. So we were relieved. We would have obviously liked to have stayed up and built from there, but sometimes taking that step back and regrouping is probably the best thing for us when you're looking back now, and just getting back and having a little bit of a reset, getting people in who were on board with training and being 2 or 3 times a week, and who were excited to play for the club as opposed to seeing it as a chore. And, looking back at that season, I think it was probably one of the most exciting seasons, or we expected it to be, until the following year, and that probably exceeded it again. But probably really exciting year, and one that we look back on fondly.
What I liked about what you did that summer is you were really, really quiet. There were nothing. Social media-wise, there were nothing. And you were getting quite a lot of Eddie, primarily. There were a lot of stuff going on Facebook. Oh, we're in bits here. We're not signing anybody. We're not doing anything. And what happened is all the signings seemed to come really late, but really impressive. Was that a deliberate plan to keep everything under your hat?
I think probably when you're looking back, maybe I can't really remember saying let's keep everything under us that, but you're obviously trying to be as private because you don't want players getting took away from you. And some of the players we're bringing in were obviously from Leeds area, Sheffield area, etc. So you've got to be careful that people don't step in for them. But I think in general the social media presence of the club at that point weren't as strong as it is now. So maybe it was a thing where we were trying to stay quiet. Social, the ones we wanted announcing, we just couldn't get announced. And unfortunately for us, by the time the season started, I think we won the first 5 games and we were underway, and the momentum was building, and the players were excited to be here, we were excited to manage, and the fans were getting back on board with everything, and things were starting getting back in motion.
I remember sending a few messages to your keeper that season as well to sweet talk him into coming back down as well.
Obviously had a good year, and got himself sent off in final. So Jimmy going out on that game, and Jimmy would be keen to tell you kept a clean sheet, so obviously it's still promotion.
You touched on Jimmy there. I think one thing that for myself was noticeable, that there was a lot of local lads that came in at that point. How important do you think that was for the rebuild, that you've got local lads that knew what it meant to play for their town?
Yeah, that was something that we said, that if we were going to grow the entire club, we were going to grow the support. It was important we got people in from the local area, obviously people like Whitey were key to that as well. Obviously he knew a lot of them from playing Sundays, and when you've got Whitey, you've got Jimmy, CD, Mikey, Josh Corbett, people like that, you're on the right path, and you've got probably the best players in the area. So fortunately we could build a side of core local lads and put a lot of good individual players around them, and obviously it turned out to be a good blend.
And one of the last ones of those, you unearthed Jack Greenoff, who were in our under-19s, I think, when you first kind of started that season. I think it were a pre-season friendly between first team and 19s, and from there he's gone on to be club captain.
Yeah, I mean, I can't take credit for that one because I weren't there that day, so I was on holiday, and I can remember the WhatsApp group was going mental about how long this lad's throw were from under-19s, and he's got a throw in that was half a pitch. So from there, obviously, once we'd seen Jack Moore and embedded him into the side, it was obviously going to be a top player for the club. And obviously he's turned out, I think he's tipping to 150 appearances or something for the club now, club captain, 2 promotions in the playoff final on his CV, so he's turned out to be a good signing.
That first season ended well for us, that we got promotion. You touched on it briefly about that second season then, where we've then attacked the Premier Division again. Clubs are saying they'll probably go straight back down. One of the favourites to go back down. A lot of talk about getting to 40 points as his first target. I think we got to 40 points pretty quickly. It went out on to be one of the best seasons that we could have ever imagined for. How surprised, but how pleased were you with the way that the squad rebuilt again on top of that previous season to go again for that Premier Division?
Not surprised, because obviously when you're a team we've got momentum like we had, and we're a team who's scoring goals, we set the targets out early about the type of players that we wanted to bring in, and obviously the players who over the last few years we'd either come across or who'd had success at the clubs that they were at. So obviously the 2 that spring out straight away were Eli and Vaughan. Obviously Cody coming at that period of time as well, but adding them to obviously Vaughan and Eli at that point, the players who scored over 60 goals combined for their clubs, and it was something that we knew, if we were going to have success, we've got to find even more goals in the team, to make sure if we're going to continue to be this entertaining team that get on the front foot and enjoy attacking sides, then obviously that's the key to it. So again, you're looking at them and the impact that they had moving forward. I think they had really good impacts for the club, and obviously a key to the success that we had.
in terms of that success, it was a bit of a strange season with the way that at one point we were many games behind, but also the points behind. But if we'd have won those, obviously the table would have switched around. Would you have said that one of the bigger kind of fixtures were that Mansfield away, where we put them to the sword and it really put down a marker of where we wanted and probably deserved to have been?
Yeah, I think we went through a period around sort of September, October, where I think we scored 5+ goals in eight consecutive games or something like that. So we were obviously making the right strides, and then as happens, we got a load of postponements, especially on our pitch at that time. It obviously didn't get the care and attention that it does now. So we were postponement after postponement, and then even when we thought we'd get a game on the way, we were off. Or I think the Christmas period we went to Gaffer and lost, and you just couldn't get any momentum. And it felt like everybody were match fit, all teams were match fit, and we were fit but weren't match fit. So it was key that once we got back into them games, we hit the ground running. So I think they did get 21 points away from us at one point, and we had 8 games in hand. So we really got to cheat through all them. And as luck has it, by the time we got to the end of them, the next game was directly up against them. So it allowed us to go there and do what we thought we could do.
I know from a watching point of view, at the end of that season, when it was like Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
It's a brilliant lifestyle.
I was knackered just watching.
And it would and what people don't realise is that I think that all the games were away as well. I think it was Boston on a Thursday, Maltby on a Saturday, Answorth on a Tuesday, and another one on a Thursday, and another one on a Saturday, and every game were away from home. So it got to a period where I think the players put about 500 miles in on the space of 7 days, for the club. But it's a lot.
And won all of those as well.
It's a lot easier to get them to do that when they're in a title race than it will be to get mid-table. But
I think they were a disappointing draw. Did we draw with Brig here?
Yeah.
Brig.
They scored from about 40 yards out.
Yeah. But I think we drew with Barton at home and run into that as well. But yeah, we're easy to get the players to do it. But I think when you're talking about players being leggy and energy levels, we went to Boxford, we were cruising 3-0. They peg it back, it was 3-2, then we scored late. And it was getting to a point where we just couldn't wait for the end of the season. Really.
Then obviously winning that league title, finishing top, I think we were quite clear in the end at top of that league. We step into the Northern Premier League for the first time in the club's career. Again, another change in the squad, some new faces that were obviously would have been the case when you step up to that level. What were your expectations going into that season, and obviously how it ended up going in that first season in this league?
I'm trying to think who the new players were.
Connor
Smythe.
Connor were there.
And I can't recall too much business apart from that being done. Especially early on, I don't think there were many players brought in the summer. We just, we said to the players, we're just going to put trust in what we've got. You've all earned the right to go into the next level together. And like you said, we went in then. Different to the years before, I don't think we started that well. Obviously the opening day, the first couple of games we beat Lincoln at home, I think Pickering away, and we were going well. But then I think we hit a sort of period where we realised quickly that at this level you've got to have depth in the squad. We started to get a couple of suspensions, a couple of injuries, and before you know it, you're travelling light, and you've only got 13, 14 players travelling. And all the teams that have success at this level have good, strong squads, and obviously I think we learned the hard way before Christmas. And then after Christmas, really put a run together to elevate ourselves up to player position.
We brought in a couple of lads on loan. I seem to remember. I think Gaffer, one of those, was that in that first season. Obviously, Gav's gone on to have a number of years for us. He's been he obviously joined you now in the management side of things. But that particular season, like I say, everyone were writing us off at the start of the year, and at every point it looked like we might not have catch Morpeth, but we certainly gave it a good go to get as close to them as possible. Obviously, playoffs, the playoff semi down here, in terms of the first big occasion that we had as a club during that period. What was your thoughts and memories of that game?
Yeah, like I say, I think it's the first time I'd seen the ground almost nearly full. I think we were 1,200, attendance at that day. But I just remember Up until that point, we'd sort of got our eyes on that we thought we were going to play Sheffield. And the results on the final day spun it around a little bit, and obviously Sheffield, I think, won and Ossett lost away at Stocksbridge, and it transpired that we had a local derby against Ossett in the playing semi-final, which, you know, sort of puts a little bit more spice on the game, and obviously, you know, the fact that it's a derby as well as a playoff elevates it, and the pressures ramp up, and, you know, I think we're probably lucky to still be in the game at half time. I remember them hitting the bar just towards the end of the first half. We were already 1-0 down at that point, and then we sort of come out second half, and I think, as we had done with most teams that year, we just fitted them most teams and sort of ran over the top of them and beat them into submission, for want of a better, you know, phrase. But got the equaliser, and then, you know, we always felt from there in extra time there were only going to be one winner, and obviously Mikey's
his usual magic.
Dances his way through and puts one in, and Jimmy comes up with the best strike he's probably ever hit in his life, and obviously puts it in the top corner. But, you know, I think the extra time is probably the one thing maybe that sort of curtailed that season for us. That obviously his chances of getting promoted.
Yeah, we looked tired on final day against Brighouse. That's what my thing. That team that we had beating them every day a week. And we'd beaten them twice in the season, I believe, home and away.
Yeah, which is obviously football's a funny old game, and you know, on the day, fair play to Brighouse. You know, they turned up, they were better than us, and deservedly won that game. And obviously, we had to go away and lick us wounds a little bit and get ready for the next season.
Obviously, in terms of that playoff final, I think it's a bit strange in the way that not everyone seemed to know, but most people knew that they couldn't go up with the way that the league was structured and the points per game required, I think it was, for sides to go up, which makes the idea of the fact that there had to be a playoff final when only one team could have gone up seem a little bit strange.
One team could go up in West as well, and that was our argument. Why didn't we just let us play the other team in the West, who obviously could go up as well and have like a super playoff? Both teams wouldn't have known anything about each other, but obviously the league's slightly different, and Brighouse were on the day, and neither team went up. The first time we probably, you know, felt disappointment really for probably 3 seasons.
And then this is where things started to get a bit strange. Obviously, the following season, again, we've gone really well, and then COVID strikes.
Yeah, just remember, you know, before that, we didn't seem to be able to get a game on. It would stop-start all season for us, you know, and then I remember playing Workington on New Year's Day here, and it was, I mean, we did the best to get it on, but it
pitch were a nightmare.
And obviously Workington were a really good footballing side, so it probably played into our hands a little bit on that day. But, you know, when you've got good players as we did in wide areas, probably that, you know, the pitch weren't helping us at any point. And like I said, we'd worked ourselves back into a position where if we won us games in hand, I think we went second. And unfortunately, along came COVID, and we didn't really kick a ball for the next 2 years.
And then obviously things slightly changed, where obviously you guys went off to Worksop. We'll not talk too much about that.
Nick's covered his eyes.
Indeed. And then it came to the point where obviously we'd struggled somewhat in your absence. You then contacted by Mark about potentially returning to the club. Tell us about how that conversation went and what your thoughts were about coming back.
Yeah, I think, you know, probably there's a lot of things that have been said, but I think at that time it was probably right for everyone to part at that time. You know, probably the disappointment of losing the playoff final, coupled with the disappointment of obviously the curtailed season when winning another title race, probably took a lot out of everyone. And, you know, just to probably get refreshed a little bit. And obviously, you know, I'm not just speaking for myself. You know, for the entire management team at that time, we were probably all on the same page. And we obviously went to Worksop at that period of time, and you know, before you know it, COVID cut another season short, and you know, sort of throughout that period of having no football or no contact is when the initial contact came to me to, you know, I think the approach you got into Worktop, and then the initial contact came into me to see if I'd return, and obviously I come and had a conversation. It was something I was keen to do initially, and obviously I got a few people asking, you know, why did you not just stay in the first place and take the job? And the simple answer is we weren't offered it. You know, I was never offered it at that point, and obviously I went away, and obviously when I got the chance to come back and sort of lead the team as opposed to being just a part of it, I was keen to do it, and obviously move forward from there.
In terms of this being your first full managerial role. How was that, and building a management team, and then obviously then building a team which was basically from scratch again?
Difficult, there's no dressing up, and I think it showed in the results early in the season, barring the FA Cup, which obviously were a good distraction for us, but it sort of took us away from the league form. But to come back in, I don't think it's any secret that throughout COVID, when you've got a club that literally is a community club that runs hand to mouth and it's got no income, bills still need paying. The electric don't turn off and the rent don't go away, and we had to come in and work at, I don't think they mind me saying it, work at a reduced budget, and try and just build a squad that could get the club moving back in the right direction. And probably foolish of me and the rest of the management team, we just thought we'd be able to come in, do it, pick it up where we left off, and away we go. And obviously that weren't the case. And thankful to people around the club and supporters and obviously club members for sticking with it, because obviously I think we are starting to see the shoots of greenery from what we've tried to do. I think people forget that when we completed that first season, it's actually the club's only second full season at this level due to the two COVID seasons. So, we produced, despite I think we finished 12th, we produced the second highest finish in the club's history.
I think it's worth noting as well that obviously that first season in the Northern Premier League, we finished second. If you look at the season after that, the level of quality in that league, I would argue that it was probably a lot higher standard than obviously the season after the restructuring. It's gone from northwest to northeast. It obviously changed again, but I think for the first two seasons with the quality in that second season, it was quite a drastic change in the standard of the league.
Yeah, and as I said, probably just naive from us, coming in and trying to implement the style of football that we'd left with, and probably not having the personnel to do it. And obviously we were learning that quickly, and then we sort of had to adapt and just be a little bit more solid and start playing on the counter and get a little bit more experience in there. We had the likes of Joe and Luke came at that time, and they got us up the pitch better than the players who were initially in there. And also, I think the form after Christmas sort of picked up. We'd had the FA Cup run, which we can all see the improvements at the ground from what that generated. And looking back, obviously the FA Cup's the right spot, but I think working his way out of trouble probably made us more resolute for what we had to face moving forward.
You touched on it there, obviously the FA Cup. I think it's only right that we talk about that. As we talked about the Ossett game being one of the biggest games. That was arguably the biggest game. Maybe not from a competitive aspect, but more from what it meant for the club. Seeing, I think it was 1,500 people in the ground, people sat on walls on the Skinner Lane end, and we'd push them right to the brink in that home game.
Despite not being on competitive, but we actually made it competitive on the day. We turned up and we had a game plan to be solid. I won't be shy saying it, to try and run the clock off and hopefully find one set piece or one chance at some point throughout the game against a team who at that point were third in National League. So there's no shame in trying to just find a way to try and win it.
What's it like preparing for those games against a side that you've not played against? You've probably only seen a couple of times from the odd game when you know who you're facing in that round. What's it like preparing for them games?
We actually left our training session on the Tuesday and went to watch it at home. I think we played Notts County at home. And after 20 minutes, Notts County were winning 2-0, and we're like, we might actually have a chance here. And then Halifax got a man sent off, and thinking, there might be 1 or 2 weaknesses, and somehow the 10 men won 3-2. And we came out and thought, maybe we've just got to keep his feet on the ground. But preparing for it's difficult. You're obviously proud that you're going to be in there. It's a no-lose situation as such, but what you don't want is to get embarrassed. You don't want to be coming in here getting hammered, and it takes all the feeling away of reaching that round and setting history for the club. And obviously, fortunately, we did ourselves justice in. Unfortunately, bowed out in the replay longer. I
think even in the replay, you talk about done ourselves justice. For 60 minutes to 70 minutes, we were probably firmly in that tie as well. We had a couple of chances. They'd obviously had their chances, being the side that they were, and a side that trained God knows how many times a week and whatever budget. National League side that, like you say, were up there, barring maybe 10 minutes where they kind of put the pressure on. It was again a 50-50 game in terms of the chances. How proud was it seeing that away end full with nearly 600 people, that arguably made more noise than the home fans did all game.
Yeah, well, they did. Well, to us they did, because we were obviously at that end. Our dugout was that end as well. But it's something that we've never seen as a club, and probably we'll have to repeat history to see it again. And obviously, it were a proud moment, but ultimately, you probably don't look back on that as a manager until the game's done. We had a full focus on. We had a group of players that celebrated a 0-0 draw like a 1-0 win on the Saturday night, and you somehow, you were playing, you were just mindful that when Halifax get you on a big pitch and start moving you around is the tough first game that we had going to come to fruition, and obviously they were on the top, but we showed good energy levels, we were resolute, and like I say, obviously I think we're indebted to Ryan in the first half on 2 really good saves, but we were well in the tie. I think the substitutes probably changed it for them. Fresh legs coming on, and obviously started stretching the game a little bit more, and just work the way in behind just the once. And once is enough, 1-0, and you're out of the competition.
Indeed. Obviously, we move to the present day. Things are looking well. We're in the playoffs at the moment. Plenty of positives on the field in terms of the squad that you've built over the off-season. How pleased are you that you've been able to bring in the recruits you have, and the change of kind of the style of play that we've seen since the start of the season and the pre-season period?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the first summers that we found recruitment a lot easier, and people started to see us again as somewhere that they wouldn't mind coming. I think that obviously the sale of Shep to Barnsley probably helped in that, as young players see it as somewhere maybe they could come and develop and obviously work under a management team that'll help them. So, we have been lucky with this recruitment, and I'm no secret saying in previous years it's not been an easy place to recruit to. It's difficult, and that's why sometimes you have to, not perhaps put a style up to do that, but it's us against the world at times, and it was siege mentality. But sometimes this summer it felt like players wanted to come here as opposed to us having to overly chase, and we had young players who were coming in and wanting to hit the ground running in pre-season, wanting to be a fit side. And seeing that on the pitch at this moment in time, good young players who are fit and who are working hard for each other, and taking pride in doing so.
In terms of a final bit of on the pitch, obviously at this point in the season, we're in November. You've got a busy schedule coming up, as we always do over this period. What is it that you're looking for over the remainder of this season, but particularly this next block of games?
Consistency. We said to the players from the first day of pre-season, we'll always be performance driven as opposed to looking at results. And I think you can play poorly and win, but if you're doing that more often than not, your luck will run out and you'll start to the results will go the way they should. So we're always performance driven with this group. If we play well, then we can handle it. You might play well and sometimes get beat. You might play well and only get a point, but as long as we've played well and stuck to the game plan and stuck to what we need to do, we're happy. And I think you saw over previous 2 weeks on difficult pitches, the results didn't go too well, but we still went with the belief we could on Saturday that we'll turn it around. That as long as we keep playing well, as long as the actions and habits are right, the players are fit, and obviously things will go the right way. And we saw a positive result there. So the key thing is consistency, making sure we attack every game to win. We're not interested in being a team that we're unbeaten. 3 or 4 another draws. I know I said this in the interviews quite a lot, but I would rather win 3 and lose 2 than draw all 5. It's that simple. You come out with more points, and we're a side that want to be up the right end of the table this season. A good, enthusiastic group of players who are all training hard and working hard for each other, and it's a pleasure to manage them at this moment in time. So long may that continue.
Brilliant. Well, I know you've got to get off to training, so we'll let you jump off. We've held you for longer than we probably should have done.
I'll get a fine now for being late.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. So
Thank you very much.
We'll speak to you later on in the season at some point. There we are. We've managed to hold him for a little bit longer than we probably should have done there. The 15 to 20 minutes turned into 30 to 40 minutes, but we've certainly got a good insight into the way that life is a bit as a non-league player, and then into management, and obviously the way things are going at the moment. There are a lot to cover, and I think we covered quite a lot in terms of the bits that probably people didn't know in terms of about Craig as well.
Particularly playing bits. I know you guys are a bit of a dinosaur around here, right? Yeah. But yeah, certainly the playing bits. Some of the names I remember, some of them I don't. But
yeah, good to hear that.
The thing is, I only saw Rouse play at back end of his career, as he said here. So it was kind of that off the bench sort of guy, but you could tell his attitude was right. You know what I mean? You see too many players at this level. They don't play for 2 games. They've thrown the teddy out and they've wanted to go and play at Northern Counties. He's very superstar.
You get feeling Craig as well, don't you? That's what he looks for in the players that we've got here. You see someone throw Teddy out, you don't tend to see him again.
No, you don't see him again. No, there's a few of them disappear along the way out. Which is what you want, and how you want players obviously that are committed to your cause and what you want to achieve. So yeah, perfect seeing something like that.
Indeed. We kind of move on to the next stage of this podcast where we look back on how things have gone on the pitch since the last podcast.
Wet. Everywhere's been wet.
It has been pretty wet. In terms of recent results, obviously, if we look at the last game that we've played, we played at Winterton, a side that I'm pretty sure Gareth's going to mention that he's still shocked that we played him in a league fixture. And probably a number of sides thought about that as we were talking to Craig about when we got into the Northern Premier League.
Ponty, what are they doing?
Are we playing a West Riding County Cup game? But no, obviously Winterton, we went over there. They've been on the back of a decent little run of results. I know their league position might not have showed that, but 3 wins in the last 4, I think it was, with us rocking up to Winterton. I think the first few minutes of the game, you could see that they were quite confident and that they could maybe get a result.
Well, I think we were pretty well organised. I know the scoreline never suggests otherwise. I felt we were pretty well organised. I just didn't have the ability in the team to compete. But on the whole, I thought that they were pretty well organised. I think we've played worse teams than that.
I think it's worth noting, just while you've made that point, for those that can't see what's happening, Nick's layering up. He's just put on a beanie and a pair of gloves. And he's got a rug on his upper lip that's keeping his upper lip warm.
November is for charity. £250 from my workplace for every person who grows a moustache.
Which can only be commended, so well done, sir.
Thank you very much.
So obviously back on to Winterton. We talked about with Craig about the style of play. I think the second goal that we scored epitomises what changes he's made to the way that we play. We've got a move where it's gone through, I think it was 7 players in the end, where it's been 1 and 2 touch passing. It's been worked from the left out to the right back. It's played into the hole, as you would call it. It's been turned around the corner to the winger in the channel. It was 1 touch across into the box, finished by Bailey, just about 6 yards out. Lovely move. You can hear Gareth behind the goal. Okay, now. As you can always hear him. No, I'm certain it was.
In admiration, that is.
And that's right. It were a goal where it left you thinking, that's a properly well planned out move. And obviously, I spoke to Craig after, and he said it's something we've worked on. And when stuff like that come off, obviously you could see with the lads when it went in, everyone's piled over to the corner, everyone's looking buzzing that what they've worked on's paid off. And I think that's a sign of what we've been building this year. And I think in terms of fans watching that kind of football, as much as when you're playing direct football and it's working and you're winning games, you're probably not so bothered. But when it doesn't work, you get a few grumbles and a bit of frustration, I think.
For me, Brighouse game showed that. It's normally you turn up in previous years to a Pompey game and it's been silently down, pitches are pudding, and you think, yeah, this has been playing to our hands. They're not going to be able to pass it around and do what they want. But our direct style will win the day, other way around.
Yeah.
It's like we can play our football because pitch were pudding and Brighouse were direct.
Yeah.
And that's why even the game up and on a nice football pitch we beat them comfortably for me. But it was just one of those days, that day, when the pitch let us down because of how we want to play.
And I think that's also another thing to add, that the fact that we managed to fight back and get an equaliser late on, I think that's another sign of a side that's going to be up there and in and around the playoff spots. Being able to drag points from a game where it's looking like it's running away from you. Obviously, the week prior to that, was it week prior, 2 weeks prior maybe?
When you were in Turkey?
Yeah, and no, at Ashington.
Yeah,
I was here for Ashington. Yeah, it wasn't a great game. I think it's probably right that we don't go too in depth into this because there are a lot of stuff that's happened on the day with different bits and pieces. But a game that for 75 minutes of it, we were probably comfortably the best side. We created countless chances in the first half. They didn't really create much other than a pot shot from range. Second half, first 15 minutes, it was one-way traffic. Maybe 10 minutes or so even. We were camped in their half. Their fans are getting a bit rowdy. We're giving them it back. And it's when Gareth says, this is where they go other end and score, isn't it? And lo and behold, they went up the other end on a counter-attack from one of our spells of possession around their box. They score twice in the space of
It felt like the same.
Twice in the space of maybe 2 minutes. And the game's obviously turned on its head at that point. I think maybe they had another 5 minutes after that where they could have scored another couple. They've hit the post twice, I think, in that period.
Yeah.
And then we've kind of got to grips with the game again. We've kind of gathered as heads and we've then put them under pressure. Obviously, Adams scored late on. Bailey's had a chance with not much of added time left where he's tried to dink it over the keeper and it's ended the wrong side of the post, where, again, we probably could have and at least deserved a point. I know that they tried to argue otherwise on social media, but, again, we'll not go too much into that.
It was a nice goal by Adam, though.
It was a very nice goal indeed. Prior to that, we've had a couple of postponements. I think we drew with Dunstan. Was that before or after the last podcast?
Definitely drew with Dunstan.
We had Sheffield after Dunstan.
I can't believe you haven't done your research.
Sheffield away while I was on holiday was after that. Obviously,
social media went off without incident.
there were no created players that day.
Apart from social media getting first goal or our second goal scorer wrong.
No, I think if we look back on tweets, everything was correct.
But no, in terms of that particular fixture, I think we've discussed it ourselves about the fact that going 1-0 up, things are looking rosy, looking like we're in control of the game. We concede, it's one apiece. We then have a man sent off and you think, is it going to be one of them days where we've dominated for large parts? Are we going to come away with nothing or just a point when...
I think that worried me most about that day where every time it went back to our own keeper, I thought we would have fallen off.
Moccasins, how you describe it?
He didn't seem to quite understand what Yorkshire weather would be like. I don't think people around here.
Very soddened pitches.
Moist. He wasn't expecting the moistness, I don't think.
Yeah, but no, obviously that result obviously went our way. A goal that the dubious goals panel were heavily involved in. I know Nick
and Bailey, I claim anything Thompson's gone.
I think we're in a different postcode.
Well, technically, he was in Sheffield, as you would expect to have been, but the game was in Dronfield, so that's where the confusion may have arisen.
It's an old goal every day.
Yeah, but as according to the league standing, it's gone to Bailey. So, sorry, Nick, it's gone down as your error.
Did Bailey take that first own goal on Saturday as well?
Yeah, you know that is Bailey's goal. It was on target.
I think the defenders put that in.
Well, it's gone
He must
down.
have got a good goal bonus because he's playing without it.
Listen, if he keeps putting them in like he has done, I think it's 5 in 6 or 5 in 7.
I think he's got 2.
I'm not bothered if defender puts it in forwards.
Yeah.
I celebrate just the same.
Yeah.
In fact, I probably celebrate more if the defender.
It's just funnier if the defenders are playing.
Indeed. Obviously, with the way things went on Saturday, we're back up into, I think we're in 5th place now. When you look at the games that we've got coming up, we've got at home on Saturday, Newton Aycliffe, followed by Grimsby Borough away. That if you look on paper, compared to the start of the season, the games that you'd like to think that we'd be winning in, that would hopefully push us a little bit further up in those playoffs. And then as we head into December, back end of the month, we've got Liversidge on a Tuesday night after the postponement with the potential of a certain former Leeds United player, Ross McCormack.
Does he actually play?
We don't know. I think
it's just a PR move.
It sounds like a PR move.
When we were going up to Ashington, I can confirm he wasn't playing because he was doing the commentary on Leeds game.
It was indeed, yeah. So PR move, perhaps. But yeah, obviously the Christmas period, you've got December, Bridlington on the 2nd, North Ferriby away on the 9th, Concert at home on the 15th, Carlton away on the 23rd, Stocksbridge at home on the 26th, Boxing Day. It's a busy schedule.
All the time to be alive now.
Indeed. Festive football.
I think just going back as well to Brighouse game, I know I've jumped back probably about 5 minutes.
You have, yeah.
And I wasn't here, but looking at the team sheet against Brighouse, we obviously had our 2 main centre-backs missing that day. I know we've talked about the pitch, but you don't know how much of an influence that had as well. I think we've really missed Burnsy while he's being suspended, and now obviously he wasn't there.
We've gained Burnsy part 2.
He was, I saw him.
Well, he was there. yeah, and he sung his name for a bit as well. But yeah, I think he's been a big miss in those particular fixtures.
Yeah, and I mean, that Brighouse game in particular, we had a back four that only Spratty had played in the position he'd played in for most of the season. You've got Greenoff that's obviously naturally been more of a right back over the period that he's been at the club, but I think this season he's probably played as many games in a more advanced position. You've got Elliot Owen that's played at right back. Brett Smith. All them names that you could put into one, Nick. But Elliot Owen that's played right back all season, a position he'd never played before until this year, and has played really well. Stacey was out injured, Burnsy was suspended, Josh Burns that's just arrived at the club, so then you've got a mix and match back four that, I mean, you can understand why there's potential disruption and you can maybe concede a couple of goals that you'd rather not on any other day concede, but I think you're right to mention the fact that we have been without a recognised back four, as we'd managed to put a block of games together where we'd won games where we'd had a settled back five, including Lloyd, that's also had his injury.
While we're mentioning Lloyd, I think we have to apologise to Lloyd. It got brought to my attention by Nick's wife on Sunday that we didn't sing the Ginger Noya song at full time at Winterton. And
outrageous.
And who was concerned that it was a little bit upset.
We think you were looking for
it.
Yeah,
he was looking for it.
To say he didn't used to be a fan.
He did get a bit. He got some applause though, nonetheless.
Yeah, but he didn't get his song, and I think he's so.
Well, he likes to listen to this podcast. He pretends that he yawns about it, but I know he's listening. So we'll apologise and we'll praise you for your penalty save. We cut you one short previously by saying that we couldn't remember the last penalty save.
Again, I think I were a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
Because I remember saying just spot penalty. I don't think I've ever seen Lloyd save a penalty.
No, you definitely said
No,
that.
it was Alex Petrovic that had made the save, and we'd said before that it was the first one we'd remembered for ages, but he'd actually saved one against Frickley the year prior. So he's had 2 penalty saves in 2 seasons, so his ratio's improved.
Fantastic.
So well done, Lloyd. Obviously, we've covered the games coming up. We've had our special guest in Craig Rouse.
We haven't covered your song at Winterton now, Charlie, have we?
Listen, that is it.
Can we have a poll on this? Can you set one up if anybody thinks it fits?
Okay, well we'll put that out there. Everyone I'm sure will know the song. Tequila, or in our case,
Your case.
Adam Hall. So we'll put that out on Twitter.
Don't fit at all.
Bit of a squeeze, is
I
that?
think
You even saw that bit when you were doing it with Beachy, and Adam looked round embarrassed that you were doing it.
Listen, I think it went down a treat, and it'll continue to. So, but no, I think unless we've got any other business, chaps, anything that you need to raise, anything we've missed.
No, I think that's it.
That's an all-round.
I'll tell you what we haven't done. Predictions for Saturday.
Oh.
And we hadn't covered who got predictions closest last time. And I'm not saying that because it was me.
I can't remember what game it was.
The last game was the
I remember the
Sheffield game,
predictions.
and I said that we'd beat Sheffield. I think I had.
Yeah, but that don't count because you were in Turkey.
Well, we did it before I left, so I was closest. So predictions, as you rightly pointed out, for this weekend's game at home to Newton Aycliffe. Lennon, if you want to fire away first with your prediction.
He's Burnsy back for that.
Yes.
He's not.
No.
No, because he got sent off against Hebburn.
Oh,
His 3-game ban went into 4 games. So
Never mind.
just Josh Burns involved in this weekend's squad, unless there's any changes that we're unaware of.
We just get every Burnsy team. 3-0 Ponte.
I'm going to go, you'll be surprised to hear, 5-0, with all 5 goals being claimed by Bailey Thompson.
Nick?
I'm going to go for 4-1.
Well, I'm gonna go in between slightly. I'm gonna go for a 4-zipper. I'm gonna go 4-0 to the Coles. I'm not gonna try and guess any goal scorers like Gareth.
Bobby Bailey.
But I fancy him to grab one on his recent form. But we'll wrap up this particular podcast. Obviously, as we mentioned, we've covered the usual stuff that we would do, previous games and whatnot. And obviously, we had a large segment with our special guest today, Craig Rouse, which we appreciate him joining us, and it's hopefully giving you guys a big insight.
I just don't think you've recorded this.
I'm looking at it. We've got time.
Not like your post matches where it's just a video. You were rousing mighty about.
I'm hoping we've got the audio. So I'm sure you'll find out whether on social media whether this has gone live or not. Because we are on the 14th of November at approximately 8:24. So you'll know if this has happened or not.
Fantastic.
But no, thanks for everyone that's hopefully listened. And let us know your thoughts on social media. Make sure you follow us on all your usual channels. And for anyone that potentially wants to listen on a different channel or a different segment, there's many to choose from. We're on your usual podcast destinations. So make sure you tune in and remember to tune in again next time. So thanks for listening.
Bye.
Thank you.
Much.